Good evening, amigos. This is Hannibal. Say hi, Hannibal. We got a couple more minutes. We'll let some other folks get in, but we got a pretty good audience already tonight. But we're starting a little bit early just so folks have some time to get the notifications. But tonight we're going to have an interview with Sara Martinez, one of the authors behind Hell on the High Plains, which is the next Deadlands property coming to Kickstarter. It's going to kickstart next Tuesday, February 15th. So we're pretty excited about that. And Sara is a local gal, a Rocky Mountain Savage. And as we've been friends for several years, and I'm glad to see that she's finally made her way into getting published with Pinnacle. If you're not familiar with Sara's work, I'm going to pop a link in the chat. She has previously published with Fabled Environments. And let's see if I can find that link. Here we go. So yeah, there's a link in the chat if you guys are checking out, want to see Sara's previous work. And I'll post that again during the interview. But just in case, you got about 2 or 3 more minutes before we're going to get started in earnest. And you guys got to pay the puppy tax. How's it going, buddy? Yep. Yep. Attaboy. What up? Hi, baby. Yeah. You like Deadlands? He hasn't eaten any Deadlands books yet, but I mean, I've definitely been smart enough to get this a little higher than my Rippers books, which he has already dug his teeth into. If you haven't sunk your own teeth into Rippers, I highly recommend it. It's a really good setting. But yeah, for folks just joining us, we are launching Hell on the High Plains on February 15th, which is next Tuesday. We have 3 authors behind there: Brian Reeves, Sara Martinez, and Garrett Leahy. And we already had an interview up with Garrett Leahy, and tonight's interview is with Sara Martinez. And then this Thursday, we're going to have our interview with Brian Reeves. And let's see, any other business before we get started. So all you Holler folks, Holler backers, the pledge manager is open on our site if you haven't seen that yet. So you've got some coupons in your mail. Log into peginc.com, go to your email, click on the coupon there, and it should populate your cart with your store credit and all of the items you got on the Holler Kickstarter. And you can add to your order, save on shipping, all that good stuff. Oh, baby. Mwah. And let's see other news. Let's see, we got some VTT releases out. And then one more thing. Let me pull up my email so I get it quick. But I believe for a number of hours this Saturday, there's going to be a charity stream on behalf of the Acevedos. So if you guys don't know yet, Aaron Acevedo, who is the art director for Pinnacle Entertainment and runs Sigil Entertainment, who does art direction for Savage Worlds, Pinnacle, and several other great publishers. His wife is currently battling glioblastoma. And so there's a GoFundMe, and I'll get that link up here, and I'll have it in the chat momentarily. But then Dice Shame is going to be doing a, this Saturday. They're going to stream for 12 hours to raise money, and they are at Dice Shame on Twitter if you want to catch that. And to see, let's see, here's there's a YouTube link. So let me post the YouTube link in our chat while we're waiting, and then we'll get started with our interview with Sara. So make sure we're in the right window. So yeah, right in chat now, there's a YouTube link for what's going to be this Saturday, 12-hour charity stream on behalf of the Acevedos. And then if you guys want to donate directly, there is links. If you just go to the news articles for peginc.com and look at the news, there is a Warming Hearts with the Acevedos article that's got the GoFundMe right there. I'll post it in the chats here. But otherwise, we got a full house already. So welcome everybody who are on, let's see, the Pinnacle Entertainment official Savage Worlds group, Peg Inc. on Twitch, Pinnacle Entertainment on YouTube, and the official Pinnacle Inc. page. We got viewers from all, so welcome, guys. So again, since we'll get started here, tonight we're going to have an interview. It's going to run about 35 minutes with Sara Martinez. She is one of the authors behind Hell on the High Plains. That is the new Deadlands Kickstarter that is launching on Tuesday, February 15th, so right after Valentine's Day. For our We Play Savage Worlds Share and or Tell Mondays, on Valentine's Day, we want you guys to post on social media what you love about Savage Worlds, Deadlands, or any of our properties, and use the hashtag We Play Savage Worlds, and we'll be sharing those in the newsletter as we see them. And then this Hell on the High Plains is pretty exciting. It is a collection of both short adventures, and there's an overarching narrative adventure. And there's even, if you watch the Garrett Leahy, maybe it's the Brian one of the interviews, there is a secret little plot of adventures that your players might stumble upon. So if you're going to be playing this, be creative and dig for hints from your game master to unlock what's a fun little secret adventures. So Hell on the High Plains, it is coming to Kickstarter February 15th. That's next Tuesday, noon Eastern, and it'll be on Kickstarter. And it's another great Deadlands release, so we're looking forward to it. With that, any questions, I'll be answering them in chat. And oh, damn it. Sorry you can't get it working on the Roku, but we are on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook right now. So one of those three hopefully works. If you can't make that, do join our YouTube. YouTube will be storing the video in posterity, and then Twitch should have it up for at least 2 weeks. So if you can't catch it there, Robert. And then Sara is in chat tonight. She is ETU Serquet, and she is the author that we're going to be interviewing tonight. So if you have any questions for her, ask them during the interview, and I'll pop them up on the screen. And if she's around to answer them, I'll pop up her answers as well. So there we go. Sara's wearing her Wildcard shirt. So thanks, Wildcards, for being awesome, and we are definitely inspirational. But we're going to get to the interview because I promised to keep this under an hour, and we'll get going. So here is our interview with Sara Martinez, one of the three authors behind Hell on the High Plains, coming to Kickstarter. And there is a Kickstarter link too. I'll put the preview link in the chat once this gets going. But there is a link that you can click to get reminded of when the Kickstarter starts. But if you're watching this now, Tuesday, noon Eastern, the 15th of February, that's a week away. And so hopefully in a week from now, we'll be doing a live stream celebrating that it's funded and all that wonderful stuff. But here is the wonderful and talented Sara Martinez. So our next author on our Hell on the High Plains extravaganza is Sara Martinez. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, folks.
So you guys should recognize Sara. She's a member of the Rocky Mountain Savages, and she's worked with Fabled Environments on several projects. the infamous ETU for your campaign that she ran here in Colorado at Genghis-Khan and Tacticon. Now you'll see her face more with Pinnacle because she's not only helping out in our customer service, she's also writing content. So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks so much.
On Hell in the High Plains, like so you were already published in the RPG sphere before working for Pinnacle, but because you're one of the good success stories, why don't we talk a little bit about how you got started? Like, where did you start? What was your first kind of RPG publication? And how did you make your way to writing for Pinnacle?
I think almost all of us start out as gamers, playing and then running. And then once you start running, you always find cool ideas like, ooh, I want to do this. And so you start writing. And then once you start writing, you start thinking about, well, maybe other people will also want to play this. I met Charles White at one of the conventions a while back, a very wonderful fellow, the guy who runs Fabled Environments. And he was looking for more adventures to publish with their company. And so I pitched him an idea and he liked it. It involved a jazz club and a cursed mask, and went from there. And I've done a few adventures with him. And then that's mostly it. Got my foot in the door and kept writing and kept working and being friends with Shane.
Right, meeting the folks in person always helps. I think Charles was out because we worked with him on Buccaneer, and we brought him out to one of the conventions. And he's a great guy to work with. Love Charles. And so for Hell on the High Plains, did you pitch an idea to Shane, or how did it work out that you ended up on the Hell on the High Plains project?
Shane actually has reached out to me. We've been friends for a while. Again, met at conventions, lots of common interests, and I'm a history nerd like him, and so I think he was looking to bring some fresh perspective in. Asked me for a couple samples, and then offered me the gig. And obviously, I was ecstatic to join and dove right in. It was a little bit of a challenge for me because it was a much longer project than I had worked on before. A third of an entire book is a much higher word count, almost by an order of magnitude than what I had done before. But I was glad for the opportunity, and it was a really great experience.
Awesome. So tell us what part of there's many states involved in Hell on the High Plains. Which territories or states did you work on? And then, expanding on that, like, what personal experience did you bring, or knowledge or research to kind of flesh those areas out?
Did Colorado, which is where I currently live. So I have some firsthand experience with areas there. And then Dakota territory. I've been playing Deadlands since Classic, so having experience with the lore for quite a number of years. Deadwood obviously is such a huge part of the lore, and dealing with the Sioux Nations and those conflicts there. So that was, I think, good to have someone who had a lot of experience playing the game and was experienced with it. As I said, I'm kind of a history nerd, so one of my first things to do is usually start with historical stories, try to do deep dives, find the stories that maybe don't get to make in most of the history books, the little weird ones, and then I like to put the supernatural twist on it to make it the Weird West.
That's fantastic. And you're talking about your bona fides. You're into the SCA as well, right? The Society for Creative Activism.
As I said, history nerd. So I've done a lot of medieval in the past too. Doing research for projects with that. So I definitely have the experience, skills for doing those deep dives and finding the obscure nuggets to tease out and work with.
So I know from helping supervise a little bit for the ETU adventure that in that one of the great plot points you bring in is like the Corn Maiden. So you kind of you reach into real history and real kind of Native American some history there. Why don't you give us a little bit of a tease on kind of what some interesting stories you found to work into the Colorado and Dakota territories?
One of my favorites I found was the story of Julesburg, which is a little tiny town up in the northeast corner of the state. It was along the Pony Express line, right where the state lines meet. Is pretty much the only reason there was a town was because there was a stop there. It was originally called Lodgepole Town until a man named Jules, who was working at the depot, got a job. Suddenly all of the deliveries started getting robbed, and they very quickly made the connection that he was involved, was fired. Well, one of the other deputies involved didn't think that was enough, hunted him down and killed him.
Ooh.
And then cut off his fingers and shot off his ears and took them as trophies. And the people of the town were so outraged by this, horrendous act that they renamed the town in the dead outlaw's honor. And so now it is Julesburg.
Oh, that's crazy. I've been to Julesburg. I had no idea it had a cool history like that. That's super pulpy and fantastic. I mean,
yeah, I know. I was reading this
for the dude.
This is totally real history. And from there, it's not even very hard to know now his angry spirit wanders the plains, and something that the posse might run into.
Oh, that's crazy good. I was talking after I did the interview with Brian, and I think maybe you might be the one who wrote this, because we were just talking about history and where we live, and obviously I'm a Colorado native, and I was mentioning about like the South Platte, and I think did you write there's something involving the Platte in one of your tall tales?
I have. Now I was trying to remember. I wrote so much stuff and some of it got cut, so now I'm trying to remember what did and what didn't make it in.
I think it might have been yours. I think he was talking about there was something like in the North Platte that kind of, I don't know, there was ghosts involved, or the while you try to remember the anecdote that kind of came to mind with me with talking about it is that the Colorado doesn't have any really big rivers. Like our rivers are kind of streams compared to what most people consider rivers, at least for most of their runs. Like there's some really great whitewater kind of on the southwest part of the state with like the Arkansas, but like the Platte, which is the river that runs through Denver.
Wide
it's real wide, and unless it's a flash flood or like the spring runoff, it's dry for a good part of the year. And then normally it's kind of like most people in the world would call a stream. Like I think my first time I saw the Mississippi, where it's like you can't see the other side, I was like, oh my god, they make rivers this big. And Brian was kind of talking about the Columbia, which the Columbia is so big it has its own tides, which is crazy. Nothing like that in the Platte, but there's an interesting little anecdote about the Platte is that when Denver just went over from being a territory to a state, the federal government was giving away a lot of money to create ports, obviously thinking that you're having a seaport or a river port of significance in order to like advance trade. So they'd give you a bunch of money to build like a customs house and docks and kind of the infrastructure to create an actual port. And some
not
crazy
really an option here in Colorado,
right? Yeah, you wouldn't happen here. Like nothing's actually navigable. But that didn't stop the local Colorado Denver politicians from paying a guy to take a canoe up the Platte to where the South Platte hits the North Platte, and then it kind of hits the Missouri, and then hits the Mississippi, to declare the Platte navigable. And then collect the money from Washington. So Denver actually scammed Washington into creating the Port of Denver. And for the longest time, there was a big, gorgeous building in downtown Denver, which was the Port of Denver, partially paid for partially with the money. It was all paid for with the money they got from Washington, but they spent the rest of the money, being politicians. But yes, there was a Port of Denver that, there's zero boats ever actually showed up at it. Because back in Washington, back in the day, they couldn't really prove that they had a survey guy say, yes, I took a manned vessel from Denver to Louisiana or whatever, at least to the part of the Mississippi that was not controversially navigable. And so as far as like corrupt politicians go, Denver's got a few and always has. But so any other good stories, like any other good hints on I love the one about Julesburg. Any other ones you want to share a little bit about?
A little lighter, funnier. For quite some time, Fargo, North Dakota was the divorce capital of the world because it had the loosest laws for residency. You could basically live there 2 weeks and you were considered a resident in terms of legal protection or going through the courts to obtain a divorce.
Oh, that's hilarious. So you go get married in Vegas and
to the point where they built to accommodate the influx, they had to build more hotels and restaurants.
So you just come in for your 2-week stay and get divorced. Wow. That's hilarious. So how do you approach doing the research for this? I mean, is it on the internet? Do you go find books and historical stuff? Like, what's your general approach to kind of digging up those interesting nuggets? Where do you go first?
I usually start with the internet because honestly, it's easier. With two small kids, my reading time gets a little cut down sometimes. But if I find a really interesting book, will try to get my hands on it. The Denver Public Library downtown actually has an entire collection of Western books, including some very rare finds. My husband even used it once for a school project, where they have the original journal of John Chivington, who is the provocateur for the Sand Creek Massacre, which
yes.
also feeds into some of the work I did on the book. So they have some rare finds like that, and if I really want to do a deep dive, that's always a good place to go.
That's crazy. Yeah, I did a little bit of research on him because I think one of the years at the conventions I ran a Return to Sand Creek game. And so he was kind of the supernatural big bad as part of that. And yeah, it's a horrific massacre that happened in Colorado. And lots of material there to work with as far as like horror, Weird West, the blending of the cultures, whether it's the military, the train, barons, and then the indigenous peoples all kind of having conflict, and then plus like the settlers, it all kind of comes together, which is kind of interesting for Colorado. I mean, we're a weird state, just how much of, I think people think of us for skiing, and a lot of it's like the mountains, but like Denver is not a mountain city. Denver is like a plains city. It is, I think the Victoria name was Queen of the Plains.
Borderline desert.
Yeah, right. You get grasslands and desert, and so it's a rich state to kind of pull some stuff from. So have you visited any of the locations? Did any of the things you wrote about come from actually popping over and taking a visit for stuff?
A little bit. There's a town just west of Colorado Springs called Manitou Springs that we visited. Obviously named after the spirits that in Deadlands become kind of some of the bad guys, which is not entirely based on actual lore, but it's we need a bad guy always to have. And so going to some of those historic spots, that's another one where they have a lot of natural springs, like Colorado Springs. That was some of the draw to the town, for medicinal value, relaxation, things of that nature. And obviously a lot of people made a lot of claims that weren't necessarily true or could be backed up, but at the time, especially turn of the century there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a crazy amount of that for Colorado. I mean, I think obviously we're a gold rush state, not as famous as like the California gold rush, but we had our own gold and silver rush. And we're also like, I think one of the big, right around this time period, a little bit later, but just kind of starting now was we were a big, come for the clean mountain air kind of, and the dry air. So when tuberculosis was a big thing, which kind of it spread really with the kind of the spread of people coming across the country. Colorado became like full of sanitariums for
they're all over the southern part of the state.
Yeah, and and there's interesting, like I say, there's quack science, real science, and then there's just some horrific stuff with that too. All in one. Just kind of some of these, when sanitariums go bad, and so yeah, it's a cool state to kind of draw stuff from. So on the Dakota territories, you got like both, right? Like they were it was a territory at the time. So
it was, and that's always kind of the interesting line, is like when you look at the real history versus the Deadlands history, because so much of that territory that is in real life was Dakota is the Sioux Nations. That's was a thing I had to balance a little bit of what to include and what not to include. We're getting close to statehood in the time period of Deadlands, but it wasn't quite there yet. And actually, right the year before, canonically, because we're in 1894 now for Deadlands, the year before in 1893 in real life, the capital of Dakota Territory had actually been moved. The original capital was a town called Yankton, which was fairly far south, and then it moved to the current Pierre, and that was a very controversial move in the time and now, and we kind of Garrett helped with that part to some extent too. He kind of, when he was putting the book together, he had a couple ideas that he ran with, and the reason for that move that we invented to kind of explain in the real life, it was just politicians' money, and the railroads was really all it was. But in our book, we have a little more something sinister going on.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to reading that part. I haven't read through the whole thing yet. So it's interesting. The same kind of capital struggle was hitting Colorado at the same time as whether it was going to be Central City, Golden, or Denver. There were a couple other cities in the mix, but Denver wasn't a lock back right when we were a territory. And
no,
the same
it was
thing.
A little more contentious.
Yeah, the
Not
politicians,
quite to that degree, but
came up with some money and bribed the right people, and it became Denver versus Golden versus Central City. So, yeah, it is kind of crazy in how all those things happen. So you mentioned the Sioux Nations. Anything you can tell us about kind of the lore and the adventures that happen with the Sioux?
With the new part of the Morgana effect, and basically the great happening where suddenly old ways is all that happens in the Sioux Nation. Modern technology just goes haywire and falls apart. That gave a lot of interesting things to work with. One of the adventures I worked on involved, a mad scientist trying to find out why is this the case. And they find some pretty interesting things along the way. And that also ties into the political conspiracy that Garrett worked in.
Awesome. I haven't had a chance to talk with Garrett yet. What's it like doing collaborative writing with other authors?
It's a good experience. It's also a little bit new to me. Most of the things I've done before outside of, school projects have been pretty solo. So you get a little work on some give and take. But, Garrett's a very nice guy, very smart, a little bit of an odd duck sometimes, but he makes it work. Nice. And Brian also was very personable, and so we'd have some meetings or chats to kind of fill in with each other of where we are and how we're working, and it was a good experience.
So obviously you've been an extensive player and game master with Savage Worlds and Deadlands. What was it like approaching a property that is 25 years in the making and kind of a bestseller? Was it intimidating? How did you find how much freedom did you feel you had to create within that? And
it can be a little intimidating because there is such a history, such a amount of lore built up. But at the same time, because we have the Morgana effect now, that gives us some wiggle room of, maybe it was this way in Classic, but now it's not. So I didn't really feel constricted at all. I had plenty of freedom to work within the lore and add to it and put my twist on things, and that was enjoyable.
Oh, fantastic. So any hints on any other projects you're currently working on now, whether for Pinnacle or elsewhere?
I actually have been working on developing my own Savage World setting that I hope to eventually get. I don't know if it'll probably rise to the level of Ace, but to get out on the swag marketplace, I think.
Well, nice. Well, you got the platform now, so tell us a little bit about it if you want. If you want to, you don't have to.
It's still in pretty beginning stages, but the basic premise is a world without plastic, which on the surface may not seem that big a change, but when you really stop and sit and think about it,
profound.
There's so many things that we use in our day-to-day life.
So do we hit a tipping point? Like, did we have plastic and then no, or it just never existed?
So it actually came to me from an article I read about scientists working on developing bacteria that would eat plastic, obviously environmental concerns and things of that nature. So that kind of got my gears rolling of, well, what happens if it goes too far, if it gets out, and then suddenly everything that has existed and is out in the world that is plastic is no longer usable, becomes degraded, disappears. And how would society and how would the world adapt from there? And so it's not hard sci-fi, I wouldn't say. It's kind of a soft sci-fi, speculative fiction kind of thing. But I've been working on it. I've had a couple test adventures, and I think once I get all the way out, it should be a good time.
Oh, fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. That's a really cool twist. I haven't heard that one already. So, it sounds like you've got room to really explore. And it's a cool idea, especially given if you just spend a day in your life cognizant of how much, you're like, no more cell phones, no more medicine. I mean, 98% of stuff in medicine, it isn't like, titanium or implant grades, metals is made of plastic now. No more nylon, no more thread. Oh my God, yeah. The implications are kind of scary.
Some of us have been sitting it down and just going through the list of what are all the kinds of plastic, what are all those applications, and how would you adapt if that wasn't an option anymore?
Oh yeah. And then, and considering that, most plastics are similar kind of hydrocarbon chains to, the petroleum industry. If you lose gas too, oh my God. Wow. Yeah. There's a lot there. That's not just like, oh, people had their zombie apocalypse. No, man, that's
yeah, I don't quite call it an apocalypse because it's not, world breaking, but it is very much world changing in a profound way.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, even just thinking about like the current printing crisis. I mean, all the inks are made out of like petroleum derivative, right? But you're thinking like, how hard it is for us to navigate the waters now that there's just supply chain issues. But then you think not like supply chains that will never be fixed because the products no longer exist. And then, what are the alternatives and how do you go about that? And what things become important that you never thought would become important anymore? I mean, just think of like all the packaging for our. Oh yeah, wow, this is good. I like this, Sarah. You've hit on a good. I'm glad you've said it on the video because now anyone steals your idea, right? Like trademark Sara Martinez. When this comes out, early 2022, done, claimed it. There you go. Can't steal it. Last question: of all Pinnacle lines that you haven't written for yet, which would be the next one you'd be interested in kind of exploring besides Deadlands?
I mean, I still have my ETU book that I've worked on that, as you mentioned earlier, that I've done at the campaigns. I really kind of would like to maybe see if we can make that a plot point campaign at some point. I've always been kind of obsessed with ETU because it's so different from a lot of other gaming things where all of the players are just normal college students, and how do you suddenly deal with all of these terrors of the night that you had no idea were real? So ETU, I've always been kind of obsessed with, and so that's my one I'd like to slide into next.
Well, awesome. Well, that ideas for Shane and Simon to consider. Well, thanks for joining us, Sarah. I'm glad that you got to work on this. I'm really thrilled to see your success in the RPG industry and hope for many more good things for you to come. So, cheers.
All right. Thanks so much. Night.
So you guys will see Sarah again on Tuesday for our live stream when the Kickstarter launches. So once again, the Hell on the High Plains Kickstarter launches Tuesday, February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. So on next Monday, we want you guys to go to the socials, use hashtag #WePlaySavageWorlds, and tell us what you love about Deadlands or Savage Worlds or any of this the settings therein. And the Kickstarter should go off at noon Eastern on Tuesday. And it'll be exciting to be on Kickstarter. And then so it's Hell on the High Plains. And then we'll have same time on Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll have our third interview with Brian Reeves. And until then, guys, we play Savage Worlds.
We play Savage Worlds, whether we're at the table or over the internet. In our role-playing game, fantasy is just the beginning. From the Wild West to the depths of outer space and beyond. Anytime, any place. They're all Savage Worlds.